what they do. It's an exciting time right now, and what we have always looked at in the past is when to start the college process. It's always like, when do you start it? How do you start it? Who do you talk to? And we never know when it is enough time to do it. So we're kind of like pushing it now and keep moving it up every single year because it's getting a little bit, well, it's getting a lot of it more competitive, and they're moving up a lot of their deadlines, and there's a lot of early actions and that kind of thing that's going on. So that's why we started bringing you guys in earlier to start showing you how to plan for a presentation. This is done by the entire department. Mr. Myers, Mr. Blanchette, Kutzner, Miller, Clodier. I say it wrong every time. Ms. Riley and Ms. Swick is way down there in the back. So welcome everybody, and we will start with a presentation that has a really lot of information, and the information is not meant to overwhelm you. It's not meant to scare you. It's meant to give you a overview of what you're going to go through. But remember, you're going to go through it, and you're going to go through step by step by step. You're not going to just do it all at once, okay? One of the biggest misconceptions I find is as you are going through college planning for your juniors is everybody is an expert. No matter who you talk to, they're going to be the experts on colleges and what to do and what's the best college. I think between all of us together, we must have put together 20,000 applications, would you say? And I still wouldn't call myself an expert, simply because colleges are constantly evolving, constantly changing rules, requirements to get in. So we're always learning, and we learn with you, and as we're going through this, of course, we will send you out information to let you know. So let's start here. It's a big country. There are a lot of schools. You can see there by the states. There's something in every one of them. What we like to do is just start with the most basic way of looking at what you're going to do. If you want to go to a big school, if you want to go to Harvard, if you want to go to a smaller school, if you want to go to Naugatuck Valley, let's say, how do you assess yourself? Where do you put yourself in the evaluation to say, this is what is good, this is what is reasonable, and this is what I did as a student being a senior up to this point to go into a college. As a parent, you also want to look at your child and say, okay, let's assess what you did, where you're going. Did you look at your transcript and see your child has gotten straight A's or straight C's or straight B's? Have they had any own self-driven motivation to study for the SAT or look at an ACT? These are questions that you want to ask your child now, because it gets a little too late to study for an SAT the night or two before the test. It gets a little too late when you're applying to a school that's super, super competitive and you really didn't take the necessary credentials to get into that school. Now, as a parent myself, and juniors, you won't even understand the sentence. It costs a lot of money to apply to these schools. So if I'm applying to a school that I really don't have a chance getting into, do I really want to drop that $50 or $75 plus a score report for something that I'm not going to look at? So looking now and making your assessments and making your evaluations and looking at what courses you've taken and what courses you should be taking in your senior year is what you want to start paying very close attention to. Investigating colleges is an interesting thing because most of us, maybe this is our first time through as parents coming through the high school. Sometimes it's not our first time through, and we had an older child and we took our younger child to the campuses and kind of walked around with them and said, this is the cafeteria, this is the dorms. But they didn't get, the kids, didn't get the feeling that they're there for themselves. So again, even as a parent, taking my second child back to the campuses that we may have looked at with my first child was a better experience for her because she got to see that I'm here for me and not for him, which is, I mean, you laugh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they can get the feeling that this is going to be my school. So looking at colleges is very easy to do online. We're going to talk about tons of resources how to do that. Also, walking on college campuses is very important. Even if they're in Connecticut, just to get an idea of what a large school is or what a small school is, what the campus will look like for your future college student. When you are looking at colleges, applying to 20 colleges may sound like a lot of fun. And there was a time, I think, where us parents, when we applied, we just kind of took everything, threw it up against the wall, and whoever chose us was a great idea, and we said, well, we'll just try it to see if we get in. That game really changed tremendously. If you are making uneducated, if you are making unqualified, or your credentials aren't right, applications and sending them to colleges, you're going to get more than likely a bad result. So you want to make sure what you're sending out is narrowed down to reality, narrowed down to a probability, and hopefully narrowed down to I have a shot of getting into this school, okay? And then of course, on the financial side, good luck. Other favorite resources we have, we're going to have a whole presentation on that coming up. Very, very interesting. So when you're beginning, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What are you going to be comfortable with? These are all questions. There's a few juniors in the room. So not to pick on you, but I'm going to. Like, if I said to you, what do you want to go, or where do you want to go to college? What comes into your mind? Perfect. Blank, right? Parents, we've gone through all this, and that's completely good. Parents, watch what parents say. Who would like to go back to college and do it all over again? Okay, see all of us, we're ready. And where would you go to school? Oh, I don't know, maybe Hawaii. Where would you go to school? I don't know, maybe Florida. I would not be anywhere where there's a snowstorm. Now, that is where you want to get to, because remember, this is 4 years of your life, juniors, your parents, this is 4 years of your life traveling back and forth to these schools to go see them, drop them off, ask for money, do their laundry, whatever that might be. So that location and what you're comfortable with really fits into what you want and what you want to see for goals as you're going through the process. That right fit is essential. And a lot of times when kids are looking at colleges, when they first step foot on that campus, they'll almost get that feeling of this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go. And that's a real good thing for parents to bite into, because now I know my kid's going to be comfortable there, as opposed to $40,000 in tuition, 6 months later they're crying to me and they're coming home. It's just not a good fit. So you can kind of see a big picture here. We want you to focus in, we want you to start researching, get online, go to campus visits, start assessing what it is you want to do, and finding the right visit, or finding visits and going on visits. There is a TV show, and I cut the cable quite a long time ago, but it's called The Today Show, and there is a weather report that's on. The Today Show has this really cool article. They did this, I think, last year or the year before, and it was a comment on what colleges are looking for. And we found it super interesting and almost kind of explained a lot of in and outs of the colleges. That's the video right here? Yeah. Thank you very much. So you're going to watch TV for a little bit.
This morning on Education Nation Today, inside the college admissions process. It is nail biting time for high school seniors. The applications are in, but the answers still weeks away. So how do schools decide who gets in and who misses the cut? Today got an exclusive peek at what happens behind closed doors.
That's the one thing I fear. If we're going to take a risk on a student, I'd like to know that there's some sort of compelling argument to do so.
It's a give and take, 15 minutes that can decide a student's future.
I don't think we should deny her.
At Grinnell, a top liberal arts college in Iowa, 2 admissions officers read an application. Their comments are shared.
Waitlist in order, but I could even go with a deny.
This is, were you reading this one at 3 a.m.?
Then the application is parsed. Grades and scores are scrutinized.
His SAT 2 in history was a 750, so that doesn't make sense if you're getting C's.
Essays evaluated.
This essay really kind of spoke to his willingness to step out and try new things.
Comparisons made.
She's far and away the lowest in the group, which probably ends it for her.
Extracurriculars weighed.
Why should we treat a musician differently from the way we treat an athlete?
And finally, a vote.
Who would be in favor of a wait list, do you think? Okay.
Quentin, you're still sticking to your deny. I stick to it. Well, sorry, you're outvoted.
Seth Allen is Grinnell's Dean of Admission and Financial Aid.
I would love to say that the admission process is a very straightforward process where every student is considered on their own merits. But that simply isn't true. The process is highly subjective.
Which means the pros and cons of a candidate are sometimes debated.
That's a great example of an essay. I mean, it tells us a lot about the student.
Well, but I guess I would take a contrarian perspective. He's talking about how much he's changed, but I do really see that in the evidence of his application.
For me, the issue is more of the transcript coupled with the light extracurricular element.
He's at a school and in an area where we'd probably like to have some more kids.
People can be very persuasive. If someone provides a rationale that you hadn't thought of, they raise issues that you hadn't really considered, your mind can change.
Who would be in favor of admitting? One, Tina, okay. Wait list? Okay.
It's little things in the process that please us, surprise us, uncover something that we think, wow, this is someone unusual that we'd like to include in the class.
Who would vote to admit? Okay. We'll call her admit then.
And we want to thank Grinnell College for its cooperation. Jacques Steinberg is the New York Times national education correspondent and moderator of its blog, The Choice. Jacques, good morning to you. I got nervous just watching that. It took me back to when I was a senior in high school because you never do get over that feeling. And is that the way the application process works pretty much at all schools across the board?
Yeah, Grinnell uses a template that exists at about 50 or so highly selective schools that, deny probably more students than they accept. And it's a very, very involved process where there's scrutiny of every sort of aspect.
But they said something there that might make students feel a little better about the process in the sense that it is subjective. It's really not a referendum so much on the kid as it is maybe what the college needs at that particular moment.
No, I think that kids and parents should never read this process as a referendum on how good a job they did as students or how good a job they did as parents. As you can see from that video, there's so many factors at play at one time, and as an outsider, you can't possibly know what they're looking for at that moment they're around that table.
And yet there are certain guidelines, right, that they follow?
Certainly, and for example, the rigor of your curriculum, how hard were the courses you took, is the very first thing that they look at in most instances. And
Did you stretch yourself then?
Yeah, and that's something that sort of is within your control, but don't go overboard and feel that you have to take, 5 advanced placement courses a year.
And what about extracurricular? How much do they weigh that?
Yeah, that's certainly in the mix as well, but I think kids and parents tend to think that you need a million activities when, commitment to a few activities, something outside the classroom for a few years often will suffice.
It's just as good. What about age and gender and maybe what part of the country that you live in? Are those things?
But these are the sorts of things where, it can kind of make you crazy as an outsider. They'd like to admit somebody from every state. So if you're lucky enough to be the kid applying from North Dakota, that might give you an edge. But gender is certainly important. They're very upfront about the fact that racial and socioeconomic diversity is important. How, as an outsider, could you possibly figure out whether you're going to get it or not?
Exactly, but the essay, again, when you're listening to those folks in that room, is so important. And for one kid, it worked against the child, actually, the essay, because it didn't match with what they were looking at in the transcript.
But again, you can't know what they're looking for.
Right.
I think the essay is one of those things that's within your control. How can you come alive as a person in a way your test scores and grades don't make happen?
So for high school junior watching this now, what's the takeaway here?
I mean, it's a crazy thought, but if you can't control this process and you can't out-strategize it, maybe it's counterintuitive, but can't you relax a little bit and sort of be yourself and just put yourself out there and let the chips fall where they may?
Well, easier said than done, but hopefully this will calm some kids down. John, thank you so much. Thank you.
It's pretty good, right? Yeah, I mean, if they do. Extracurricular activities.
Hi, welcome to the Top 10 Mistakes Students.
Extracurricular activities are super important. Juniors and parents of the juniors, I would tell them that cleaning their room, washing the dishes, mowing the lawn, taking care of their own clothes is not going to be representative of community service. However, lie to them and tell them it's very important because we will put that on their transcripts, okay? It doesn't work, but you may find your house to be a lot cleaner. So this is kind of like an introduction. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Riley, who's going to talk about some really big programs that we use to do the college admission. It's a word you're going to get very familiar with, which is the College Board and Big Future. Is that correct? Okay. Take it away, kiddo.
So it is an incredible site to use. Your children have been introduced to this in freshman year, and we have done a few exercises with them. So we can't encourage you enough to have them use it. And it's also a site that would be helpful for you to use. It has a wealth of information. If you used only this site, you'd be in great shape. But we always encourage any site, but this one in particular, and obviously Naviance, that I'm sure all of you heard of. Under each tab up there, college planning, SAT, PSATs, there's a wealth of information. And hopefully at this point, all of you, say you, but your sons and daughters have a College Board account. Do you know if they have a College Board account? Okay. If not, they should go on and establish one. It's very easy. Go to collegeboard.org and register. And there'll be some other information someone else will be talking about on that site. So when you're doing your work and trying to plan and select the perfect fit, you only have to choose from about 3,800 schools. So it's not too bad. It could be worse. But as we get into this, as it says over there, if you're going to do a search using something like this, once you put in the type of school, the location, the particular facts that you want in a school, then you're starting to narrow it very quickly. Just by saying you want the Northeast is going to take out a large number of schools. So again, under these tabs up here, get started. Again, as I said, there's a wealth of information. What to do inside the classroom, what to be aware of outside of the classroom. One of my favorites is the video gallery. There are little snippets from college presidents down to, maybe we should say, from us up to college presidents and students, all kinds of information that they are addressing. Very briefly, 1, 2, 3 minutes. They hit almost every probably question that you do have when it comes to how do I choose schools and what's important for my son or daughter to be doing. Under Find Colleges, again, you're doing the college search, you're exploring careers. I like to use this anytime with my students because you can put in engineering and then it will list, sometimes it'll come up with 56 different options in engineering. And then you can click on one of those and it gives you a very nice succinct definition of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. What you need to do in high school, how to make high school count so you can be prepared to enter one of those programs. And then it may give you, it says again what to do as far as, are you ready for? So it gives you a nice description of basically, are you ready to do this because this is what an engineer does on a daily basis. But very briefly, so you can go through those, and I've had students say, wow, I didn't know this was in there, I'm kind of interested in that, and then they go off and pursue it. Paying for college, you might want to check that one out. Again, gives you a lot of information, and there are numbers of sites out there, but again, this is a good place to begin. Getting in and making a plan, lots of great tips for students. One of my favorites under there is tips on your essay, because your essay really, really matters. It's one of the most important, besides your grades and everything else, but that can make or break you sometimes. If you're on the edge and someone's reading that essay and they are impacted by that essay, they have a good chance of getting in. So we're stressed all the time, and it's very fun. That's what we're doing now. Well, not fun for them writing it, but each year I'll remember, and I think all of us do, 1 or 2 essays that were written each year because they just made such an impact. I think I'm going to have more this year because the ones I've read are just incredible. And what the reader's looking for is something about that student they can't find in any of the recommendations or in their grades or anything else in their application. We want to have really good, solid impact. So I can't influence you enough to use this yourselves and to encourage your sons and daughters, because it will make a big difference. And a lot of students don't take advantage of the tools we give them. But the students that use this, in my experience, when I sit down in their junior year and have their maybe first major appointment on what they want to be doing in post-secondary, if they have used this in Naviance, I have a whole different conversation than I do with a student who comes in and really hasn't used any of the sites. There's just so much on here. In each one of those tabs, there are different pages, and College Board is always updating this. So this would be under the first one, 10 questions to discover your future. 6 steps to get the most out of a campus visit. 2 very, very brief, but tons of information and ideas. It could be just one thing in there that they read, and it's like, it sparks, a thought about what they want to do. And as I said, they update it, and every time you open the page, it could be different, because one time I was given a presentation, I had them all set up, and I was like, oh my God, where did all my pages go? So they do change them up all the time. And that's what's nice, they do keep up-to-date information. There's an example of the video galleries, Dean of Admissions from Dickinson, and, sorry about that. I hate when I do this.
Wanna go back?
I want to go back. How come I can't get up there? Sorry. Tricky. Thank you. Director of College Counseling. So high school, as I said, and then the financial aid and scholarships. Again, when you open this, it'll be different. The president and the dean of Yale are on here. Not that they're the most impressive, but what I like about them, the students have asked them this particular question, and one of them is about the activities. And it's exactly what they said before. Very simple description. I'd rather see a student show some passion for something that they've followed for 4 years in high school. Not a whole bunch of different activities that they really probably didn't even care about, but they thought that the school wanted it. So you get, again, a lot of information from this. Finding your right fit, which we constantly emphasize. What one student has, another student will not like. As Mr. Meyer said, you can walk on campus, and we all do it too. We just visited 2 campuses last week. We still go out. We went to Providence and New England Tech. Oh my, we're in love. We always knew somewhat about Providence, but New England Tech, incredible what they have to offer. So there's so much out there, and we get so excited about this, but you have to use the tools in order to get to the point we'd like you to be. Starting your college search, I went to a big school to explore a lot of options. Very interesting what she had to say. Is there a way to know if a college is right for you? Just lots of good stuff. Applying 101, whether or not you should apply early decision, early action, or regular decision. A lot of thought often goes into that. A lot of students jump on early action. We did most all of our seniors by now. Recommendations and getting their stuff out to colleges. And what's today, the 14th, 15th? I don't know. So we've almost done all our students, all our seniors. So then again, you see, you don't have a whole lot of time by the time you get into senior year. It goes by very quickly. So again, just really great information for you to take advantage of. Any questions on those?
I think one, they talk about activities and commitment to a few. Eagle Scout, Boy Scouts, and Gold Award Girl Scouts, I feel like are the hierarchy of awards and achievements that students can make, because it's a commitment to one activity for a long period of time and within the community and projects that they do. So I had a student that did an Eagle Scout project for an animal shelter. And it was really cool, and they're working on emergency pet kits for animals that are lost in hurricanes, natural disasters, and stuff like that. So like that's, to me, that's like the gold standard of activities and a commitment to something that's long-term. So they talk about like, we don't want a list of like, you know, this many things. Oh, I went to one meeting for the Interact. That's not what colleges are looking for. They're looking for, I'm the president of Interact Club, and we did this, this, and this for 3 or 4 years down the line, okay? College Board website also, we talked a little bit about the future. Khan Academy is a great resource as well. That is free SAT prep for students. So all the juniors and sophomores that took the PSAT in October, those scores we were told will be released the week of December 10th. So at that point, students can go on and link their PSAT scores to Khan Academy, and it will give them a personalized, free, comprehensive test prep. So if they scored lower in algebraic equations, they'll throw a bunch of questions their way. If they scored stronger in verbal reasoning, then they won't, you know, focus on that area. Okay, so every single person's prep will be different based on their scores. There's also free instant, you can take a full-length SAT and get instant scores. So it's really, really impressive, and it's free. So all these tutors that charge $80 or $100 an hour for private tutoring, I'd say try this first. There is data that shows from the College Board that the more time students spend on Khan Academy, the higher their scores go up. Okay. So we talked about the PSATs. Sophomores also took the PSATs. They'll be taking them again junior year. And then your students that took the PSATs in October will also be taking the SATs in the spring here at school. They do not have to register for that. However, that's only the math and reading section. That does not include the essay or writing portion. Some colleges require that, that extra portion of the SAT, which you cannot take individually. So if you want to take, if you take the SATs again, which you should take at least 2 or 3 times, because they super score, so they'll take the math score from October and the reading score from March or whatever and combine it. So if the school needs the writing portion, you can't just say, I want time for writing, you have to take the math, the reading, and the writing all together. So we recommend that juniors take the SATs 2 to 3 times, at least one of which with the writing portion. Any questions about that? Yes.
What are the other dates? So after March 27th, they're going to take additional ones. Could it be any time in the spring, or are there certain dates?
Yeah, so the College Board releases the dates on when they offer. We are not a test center here at PHS, so students take it like Nottawag, Watertown. So if you go onto the College Board website, that's how you would create an account and register for the SATs, and it would give you all the test dates. You put in your zip code and it would tell you where the closest test center was. We recommend that students don't wait till last minute to register because there are late fees if you don't register by a certain deadline, and also some of the sites fill up. So if you wait till last minute, you have to drive an hour to take the test as opposed to in your backyard somewhere.
But there are multiples in the spring.
Absolutely, yeah. So we recommend, 2 or 3 times in the spring, depending on if you're taking AP exams in May. We say maybe don't take it in May because you're getting peppered with AP exams. So kind of look to see what your schedule is like, when they're offered, and when you feel comfortable taking them. Some students take them senior year early in October. That's kind of late, to be honest with you. Like Mrs. Riley said, we did most of our senior applications are done. And so if a student took an SAT in October, they may be waiting for that score and leaning on that score for later, and that may delay some of the decisions that the colleges are making because they're waiting on that score. Okay. So again, juniors will be taking the SATs without the writing portion here at school on March 27th. Students don't need to register for that exam. Again, this is not a test. We didn't offer the SATs here. We're not a test center. And again, the super scoring, many colleges take the best combination of scores from different test administrations. Any questions about this? Yes?
How quick is the turnaround time on the March 27th, the students to get the results?
Usually it's like a 6 to 8 week, I think, somewhere around there. And I think we haven't offered, we've only done it in school a couple of years now. So I think it depends on how many people are taking it, when the College Board decides that they can release all the scores at once. So for the PSATs, the way you get your scores is you log into College Board, and when your scores are ready, you'll review it. So they're releasing the PSAT scores the week of December 10th, so I would encourage all of you that have already made a College Board account, or if your son or daughter has made an account, log on that week. We've had instances where they've been released kind of in waves. I don't really know why. So just kind of keep an eye out when the College Board, maybe check in on Monday. If it's not there, check out on Wednesday. Some students might get the scores earlier in the week, some might get them later in the week. They might release all in one day. It's kind of at the College Board's discretion.
And then with regards to the essay, they give the same kind of feedback to the student so that however they scored on the essay, they know where they need to improve?
The PSAT, without the essay, you get like a really distinct score report, and it tells you areas. In the SAT, you get just your score. So it's a little bit less comprehensive from the PSAT versus the SAT.
So for the essay, you get a score, but you don't really know why you got that score?
I believe so. For the SAT, because you'll log on and it'll say, 550 writing, 550 reading, 600 math, and that's your score. But the PSAT, they give you a comprehensive report, which is area strengths or weakness. You get all the answers to all the questions, so you can go back and look at the test and say, where did you score incorrectly? Was it an easy question? Was it a hard question? What percentile did you rank versus the juniors nationwide? So are you in the 70th percentile? Are you in the 90th percentile? That kind of thing. Another great option is fairtest.org. Lots of schools now are going test optional. So if you feel like your student feels like they've taken the SAT and they don't feel that that score represents what kind of student they are, many colleges like Providence that we just went to are saying you're not required to submit a test and SAT score as part of your application process. Okay. There are some restrictions for this at certain schools. Maybe if you're a health science major and you're applying to nursing, you can't apply test optional, perhaps. Maybe you have to have a certain GPA to apply test optional, perhaps. At some schools, maybe that helps you for admission, but takes you out of consideration for merit scholarships. So if you are thinking of having your son or daughter apply SAT optional, it's important to connect with the school to find out if there are any restrictions to doing so. Are you at any disadvantages for any sort of thing by doing that, okay? So this website, if you go to fairtest.org, university testing, and an optional list, you can see all of the schools that are test optional by alphabet or by state. But it's important to follow up with each school to determine what their eligibility is and if there are any limitations or disadvantages to applying test optional. There are many resources that we're going to get into to help you guys. We're going to talk about Naviance in a few minutes. Mrs. Cougar is going to talk about some books that are available. There's an app for everything these days. So please feel free to go on the App Store and have your students download apps, test question of the day, SAT practice. Naviance has a supplemental app as well, Naviance Student, that you can utilize with your Naviance account. So that's always helpful. So if you're traveling on the road and you want to look at the school, you can find the address, how many students there are at the school, how to get there, what majors are offered. So if you're driving through Pennsylvania, what schools are around me, boom, you can pull it up on your phone. Okay. And of course, us as resources. We get to know your students very well. We're going to be meeting with them for their junior meetings, starting probably sometime mid-December through the second semester. And we're going to go over GPA, your cumulative GPA, what courses they're going to be taking their senior year, how they did in their PSATs, what areas they need to work on, what their post-secondary plans are, big school, small school, city, suburb, college, major, how many credits they have, how many credits they need to graduate, what courses they still have that they need to graduate. So it's going to be a probably 45-minute to an hour meeting with each student, and we're going to give them information to take home with you guys to share, so you'll know what was talked about in the meeting and kind of where to go from there. This is going to start probably mid-December through the second semester. Our goal is to have everybody met with by April break. So if you are going to be meeting with your juniors, if you're going to be traveling with your juniors over April break to colleges, you'll have some information from us as to maybe what colleges you should be looking at or what colleges may be appropriate for you. And we're going to be utilizing some resources during that meeting to show students best fit colleges that we're going to get into in a few minutes as well. Those resources we're going to talk about. Any other questions?
Do students set up those meetings with you guys, or do you guys set it up with them?
Yeah, so we're going to look at their schedules. It's a great question, and see when they're free, when they have study halls, and then when our schedules work out, we'll be sending them an email and saying, hey, your junior appointment scheduled for February 2nd during period 2B during your study hall at 8:45. Please come to our office during that time.
Yes. Besides the website, are there any options for SAT prep classes here, live classes here, or anywhere else?
There have been companies that have come in the past. Catalyst has been one that have offered SAT prep counseling, SAT prep here at school. So students, there will be announcements for that over the intercom. I don't know if they're coming back this year or when they're coming back. Those are usually pretty pricey, to be totally honest with you. Not that I'm discouraging that. However, I feel like if something's free and it's data-driven, that's proven to work, we always recommend that students use that first, and then if they want supplemental support from there, they certainly can sign up for other group counseling, group prep or individual SAT prep.
Parks and Rec does the math.
Okay.
They have in Parks and Rec here, they have a math section.
Awesome.
It's an 8-week session.
Good to know. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to show one more video. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Does the high school let the children know when the SATs are available in areas around us? Or no? Is that something they have to proactively do on their own?
So students have to go onto the College Board to see when the SAT dates are, when the registered dates are by, and then by putting in their zip code where the test centers are.
Okay,
So
but that's not anything that the high school will initiate or give information to the students?
we do have some on your way out. We do have some handouts that break down the dates. We went to a College Board conference. They have like this notepad that has all of the important dates, so you can grab one on your way out. And it'll show you all the dates and when you have to register by. So that's helpful.
That's neat.
So Mrs. Wiggs holding it up. So you can grab one of those on your way out, or you can just go online and see when the dates are offered. They're usually around the same time every year. They're on Saturday mornings, typically. So if you go online and look to see, that's your best option.
I just wondered, there's one early March, there's one in May, and one in June.
So again, if your students are taking AP courses, they're going to be taking their AP exams in May. So the month of May may not be the best month for students to take the SATs if they're already taking a bunch of AP exams. They're going to get burnt out real fast. Okay, I'm going to show you guys one other resource. 2 college tips in 2 minutes. We're just going to show one video for the sake of time. It's a quick 2-minute video. So we'll watch that real quick.
Hi, this is Scott Weingold, co-founder of the College Planning Network. Today's 2 and 2, I wanted to talk about some of the misconceptions families have about what it takes to get into college. And I've seen it all throughout the years, from soliciting bribes to stalking admission officers to making threats. College admissions is an extremely competitive game, and like any kind of competition, it can bring out the best and the worst in people. So, there's a couple misconceptions out there. One misconception is that your family name will guarantee you acceptance, and most of the in-state elites, being a legacy has not much help at all. Schools of this size are just simply too big to make legacy a factor. However, at some of the smaller elite private colleges, legacy can be a factor, but the percentage that it applies to it's small, 5 to 30%. That still leaves the large majority of open spots to non-legacy kids. According to Yale's alumni magazine, something like only 30% of their legacy applications are accepted. Now, there's always exceptions to the rule. If you come from deep pockets and your family has been shelling out serious cash to the school each year because there's alumni in your family, then chances are your student's going to get accepted to that college as long as they meet minimum test score and GPA requirements. If your grandfather contributed a medical center to the college, you could probably stop listening to this because your student's probably going to get accepted into the college. But again, just because you come from a family that's an alumni does not guarantee your acceptance. The second misconception we see a lot is that high test scores and GPAs are all that you need, and it's just simply not true anymore. And at especially elite colleges, high test scores and GPAs, that's just a bare bone minimum for applicants to even consider being accepted. So don't get me wrong, they're still very important, but there's far more to it depending on the type of college you're looking at. You got to think like an admissions counselor. Picture you've already put in a full 8-hour day at the office and you still have a stack of applications to go through at home. All these applicants have high test scores and GPA, so what part of your student's application is going to make them stand out? How can they present that hook? So next week, I'll talk about actual strategies to execute on. And again, this is Scott Weingold, co-founder of the College Planning Network. Hope you like today's 2 and 2. Take care. Hi, this is
Another great website is niche.com, ratings by the student, for the student by the student, subjective opinions about the school, how good is the food, what are the activities like, admissions info, report cards, stats, student reviews. So like this is an example. So this student graded BU as an A+, with an average net price of $32,539. I think that's a little old. And I think it's much more expensive now. So you can go in and say, location-wise majors, test scores, and then, click the school and find out more information about it. This is a great resource. College Express is another one. 15 colleges with the most school spirit, colleges where sports rule, colleges where a high percentage of students join fraternities, and that kind of thing. So this is another great website. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Cloutier. She's going to talk about some more resources available to you and your students.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to go old school, I'm dating myself here, but we do have some really good go-to books. Kids look at me when I pull out some of my books because there is wonderful, wonderful things on the web and all this great technology. But when students do know what they want to major in, and again, it's okay if they don't, but if they do, I often go to this RUGS book. And what's great about the RUGS book is, let's say you're interested in chemistry, it will list for students your most selective, very selective, and selective colleges throughout the country. And then there's a code at the bottom to tell how big or small the school is, and students, of course, can eliminate colleges that way. So students in our offices will take pictures on their phone of this, or we'll make copies for students. So this could be a really good resource. My second go-to book, now this is 2013. We had a budget freeze for a couple years, but now we're back and running. And this isn't used all that often, but sometimes we'll cross-reference, again, what students will find in Naviance to look up, let's say you're interested in architecture or physical therapy. This breaks everything up by state. So let's say for sure you want to stay in Connecticut, this can be a great resource. And we have these books in our Career Center, and then many of the counselors have these in their offices. Just real quickly, we do have colleges that change lives and College Finder. One of my other favorites is this Atlas Planner. So a lot of our students apply to schools in the Northeast, in the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic states, maybe Colorado. So the student comes to me about California. I'm not always all that familiar with California. So if you're going on a trip, I opened this up to Missouri. If you're going out to Missouri and you're looking at schools, you can see along the way where there's different colleges. So again, students sometimes come in and take pictures of this and use this as a resource. Great. Whoops, I went ahead too fast, but the slide before is just different apps. So we talked about, Mrs. Kutzer actually is going to talk about Naviance Student, Khan Academy. This is an app for the SAT question of the day. We often say that you can't really study for the SATs, but you can practice. This is a great way for students, even in the younger years, freshman year on, to just expose themselves to different types of questions. So each day when you log on, there'll be a different type of question. And again, it just really gets them used to what types of questions will be asked and so on and so forth. So that's College Board test question of the day. I'm going to come back in the end, but I'm going to turn things over to Missy. It was quick. I missed that one slide, but a lot of those apps we had already spoke about. So I'll come back at the end after discussing our slide Naviance. So in addition to Big Future, one of the software programs that we use and are very fortunate to have for the district is Naviance. Your sons and daughters are familiar because they used it in middle school for a variety of different things. At this level, we use it for the college purposes. So your children, our students, already have accounts. You guys have accounts as well. I don't know if you are aware of that. So we used to, during open house, but then we changed the structure a little bit, give out login information. We don't do that any longer. So please send your son or daughter down to our office. We can look up, each one of you has a code. It's a numeric alphabet code, and you can put that in and register yourself so you can do your research while your son or daughter does their research. And that way you're not confusing things, and you can learn how it can help you, and it might be a little different. You might be looking at little different things than your sons and daughters are. A couple of the features that we want to highlight today in Naviance are scattergrams. Students can do career interest inventories, which I think they did in the middle schools. Jake, did you guys do this in the middle schools, a career interest, JC? Yeah, okay. So they did that in the middle schools. That obviously changes as kids get older. We don't rely so much on that. We do a personality inventory with our students. We did it with these guys last year when they were sophomores. Unfortunately, we did do it on a half day, which I think was a career day and the diversity day, and not all of our students were in school on that day. So if students want to, we can show them how to access that. The reason we do a personality inventory is exactly what Mr. Meyer and Mr. Blanchett were talking about a little bit, that your personality will help you figure out not only majors, but also what type of school might be best for you. Students can log on and register for college visits, and I'll show you that as well. We have college representatives coming here all fall. We're almost done with that process. But our seniors will come and they will visit. Juniors can too if they're free, but mostly seniors will come and speak with representatives from colleges from all over that come to talk to our Punk Rock students. Often those college reps are people that will be reading applications, so it's really nice for kids to come to those meetings and talk to a rep face-to-face and maybe ask any questions that they might have. So again, when our students log on to Naviance, they'll see all those tabs across the top, and you can research colleges, careers. The About Me is where the individual inventories are, and we can walk through with our students on that. The new, if you'll look in that little light blue box, what's new, this again, of course, is old, but it will tell you the colleges that are upcoming so that if they're if your child is interested, they can sign up for those visits. Even if kids have class during the college visits, teachers are really good about letting kids out. They just need to get a pass. If there's a test scheduled for that time, teachers may just make a different arrangement for your sons and daughters. We don't really have any problem with kids being allowed to come down. It's never been an issue. The scattergram might be the thing that's used the most by students, but please keep in mind that this is a gauge, not an absolute. So this is actual Pomperaug High School data for the University of Delaware, which is popular for our students, which is why we chose it, over the last 3 years. So these are the Pomperaug kids that the green square means they got accepted. The red X means they did not get accepted. There are some blue diamonds, I think, if you look closely. Those students were waitlisted. And the circle right up here, which I think now actually appears as a head in the new version, represents your sons and daughters. So they can put themselves, plot themselves in the average acceptance for University of Delaware of Pomperaug students. So if this were my student, and that circle, or like I said, will be a head, was in that area, I would say, if you want to apply to the University of Delaware, that's fine, but I think it's a bit of a reach for you, and we need to come up with some other schools. Okay, but again, it's just general information. A lot depends that kids can't see from this scattergram is the majors. So where one student might not have gotten accepted in the lower level, they might have been applying to the School of Engineering that needed higher criteria. But again, that it's at least something to kind of give you guys an idea. This we really like too. It's the overlap feature, which I have to warn you, if you go on right now, is currently not working in Naviance. We've called the company and they're aware of that. They have a new version. So let's say you chose the University of Delaware, but it was a bit of a reach for you, and you were like, oh, I really liked it. There's an overlap feature that you can click on when you pull up the University of Delaware that gives you schools that are similar to the University of Delaware that you might be interested in as well. All right, so again, we don't expect you guys to know all of the schools that are across the country, but if you've landed on Delaware's campus and you really like it and you think it's a reach, maybe JMU is another place for you that has a little bit, that might fit your needs a little bit better. Okay. One of the other things that has changed in the new version, it's very similar, but it just, rather than everything being in red and you can't tell that that's green, they have X's or checks, and again, it's a way to compare yourself to a school that you might be applying to. So if it's in red, if the school is in red, you fall below the criteria. If the school is in green, and then this time it'll have a check next to it, you meet the criteria. So it's again, it's just another way of comparing yourself to the average student that gets accepted to that university. Not the average Pomperaug student, the average student. So there's the scattergram gives you Pomperaug information, this gives you general information. Okay, just another way to kind of make your list of reasonable schools, safety schools, or we don't even say safety anymore, most likely schools, and reach schools. Parents have email addresses in Naviance that came from a long time ago. If your email has changed, if you're not using an email that you used a couple of years ago, again, if you would just send your son or daughter down to let us know that, we can change that. We will often send information out to you via email, via Naviance, either programs that we've done with students or upcoming things that we have. I know Ms. Wick and Mr. Jones sends things out through the email that's in PowerSchool, but we don't have access to that. We use Naviance.
So it would be really helpful if we had updated email address for parents so you guys would know what was going on as well. So instead of everybody calling, if you could just send your sons or daughters down, that would be very helpful to us to update things. And I think we're back to you, Amy.
So we provided you with a lot of information this morning. Hopefully you're not feeling too overwhelmed. So we just kind of want to sum up, not to add too much to your to-do list, but want to talk about things to do. So we talked a lot about, gave you a lot of good resources of where to do research. So definitely, if you haven't already, we want you to start doing those, getting out there and doing research and really assessing those values. Again, first step is where do you think, what's going to be that right fit for you? Use collegeboard.org and Big Future, it's Riley's favorite. Practice for those SATs, okay, we talked about that test question of the day. Khan Academy, so Mr. Blanchett talked about this. Scores are supposed to be back, as he said, the week of the second week in December. And what actually we're going to do is we're going to have all the juniors come down. We are going to explain to them how to understand your PSAT scores. Because oftentimes, for parents and for students, when they get that score, all they want to know is what the number is. And that's understandable. But what we want students to do is to understand what that score means, and most importantly, how you can then prepare for the SAT. So that's where Khan Academy comes in. It's free, that's why we love it. We go to a lot of College Board conferences, and they really do, somebody said before, we have the data to support Khan Academy. They really do give data of the many hours that students put in. I think they start with 15 hours, and they correlate it to the increase that they see in students' scores. So we're going to have the students come down, we're going to talk to them about their scores, we're going to have students link their College Board accounts to the Khan Academy accounts, but the important thing is then that you use it. So a lot of times kids are like, yeah, do you guys have Khan Academy? They have it, but they're not using it. So it's a really, really great tool. Somebody asked before about the essay. On Khan Academy, what is also awesome is you can do a writing practice. So again, that's not part of the PSAT that we give in school. But there's an essay prompt in there. You type an essay, and then they actually will correct the essay and go through for you. So that's a good prep for students too, who are going to take it, as we recommended, for the actual SAT, the essay portion. We encourage everybody to start with the super match in Naviance. So there's a really great match in there where, again, it's going to ask you how far away from home you want to be, what part of the country you want to be, big school, small school, and then it will start to develop a list. And then from there, you can again go and look at those scattergrams and do the research. Plan college visits. So again, I'm reiterating what everyone said earlier today. We had the opportunity, we always constantly as counselors try to get on campuses. It makes such a difference to go on a visit. It makes a difference too if it's a sunny day or a rainy day. We went to Providence, it was pouring rain, and it still was beautiful. That's kind of rare. So again, plan those visits. Even too, if you are, I was in New Hampshire a couple weeks ago for a wedding, and was by University of New Hampshire, and my kids are younger, but I was like, let's just drive through. So I didn't actually go on a tour, but just driving through the campus, that was a school a lot of our students applied to. I had never been on campus before. I was looking around the buildings like, oh wow, this is bigger than I thought. What a great town, all those things just by driving through. And I went to this little pumpkin farm with picked pumpkins, and it was just a really nice place. And had I not gone through there, I would have never known that. So if you're going on vacation, you go to the Outer Banks, maybe try to find a place along the way or on the way to the Cape, what have you. The other thing we're trying for the students in the room, every time we do a presentation for students, we always are saying to them, think before you post your social media accounts. We know college admissions officers, coaches that are recruiting students are checking those social media accounts. We read articles about it. We talk to a lot of reps. So it's really, really important. I hope this message gets to our middle school students because you guys all know you're starting a footprint. So sometimes you can't get rid of things that are on social media accounts. So really, really, really think before you post and spread the word to your friends because that can make a difference even when you go and you apply for a job, even when you apply for a part-time job. So we can't reiterate that enough to our students. So up next, we talked about we're going to be planning those junior meetings and having those individual meetings. One thing that we don't talk a lot about is financial aid, and the reason being is because we are far from the experts when it comes to financial aid. We can tell you some basic stuff, but this is a really, really important stop along the way, is to go into the financial aid office, find out what will be required of financial aid, find out what maybe the average package is that a non-athlete would receive in terms of financial aid. All colleges, you will have to fill out what you call the FAFSA form, but then there are some colleges that require a CSS profile or some other additional forms. So it's really important. Each college is different and each deadlines for those colleges will be different. So that's a really, really important stop. Something that we're lucky when we're working with students, we don't necessarily have to worry about. We always say, make sure you're having those conversations at home. But half of our department, their children have gone to college, so they look at things differently, and one day I will too. So that's an important stop along the way. The college essay, as Mrs. Riley said, we've been reading some amazing essays this year. The college essay is something that you can do to get ahead. So I feel like when seniors come in the fall, what we do is we very early on will go to the senior English classes and we'll talk. We have this whole internal process, which can be kind of overwhelming just because there's a lot of steps to it. So prior to that, when we meet with our students in their junior meetings, we tell them over the summer there's two things that you can do. Of course, the research, but beyond that, you can begin your college essay. So over the summer, most students are using the Common App. So I'll back up. The Common App is an application that there's over 600 schools that you can send that application to. And there's one general essay in there. There's some supplemental essays. So sometimes a student for a particular college, for Providence or UConn, you may need to write why are you interested in that particular school or particular major. But the main essay the students can start working on in the summer. So I know many of us during our junior meetings, again, we're doing them a little bit earlier this year, but we can give them the students a general prompt, so I hate to make more work for the students over the summer, but that's a great way to at least come to school with a draft of your essay. And you can begin filling out the Common Application. Again, we can't send anything yet until you come back to school and we talk to you about our processes, but that's one way to get ahead. Letters of recommendation. That's also something we talk to our juniors about in their junior meetings. We talk to students about start thinking about who knows you well, who can represent you in the best way possible. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the teacher that you got the A in. Sometimes the best letters of recommendation are about students who were resilient, they struggled, they came for extra help, and they ended up doing really well. So we recommend to students that they ask junior year teachers, or maybe as a senior, if you have a teacher that you've had twice. So again, those are things you can start thinking about, who you can ask. The other thing too, as you're researching colleges, you want to look to see how many recommendations are required. And who's required to write those. So some colleges may say, we'll take two, it doesn't matter who. Some colleges are very specific, they want one teacher and one teacher. Usually students don't need more than two. So again, students can start thinking about that. In terms of scholarships, there are so many scholarships out there. It's usually something that students start focusing on a little bit more their senior year. It really is a full-time job finding a scholarship. I guess the one thing I want to leave you with when it comes to scholarships, first of all, we do have local scholarships. We have like a Common App within our school come February, March that seniors apply to, and then that qualifies them for all the local scholarships. However, for national scholarships, there's so many different types. I had a student, I worked at Bethel High School, there was a left-handed student that got their scholarship for that. There was a student who had asthma. So my point is you don't have to be the best and the brightest when it comes to scholarships. Sometimes they're looking for students who are focusing on education or maybe focusing on engineering or so on and so forth. There's a website called fastweb.com where you can put information in and do a search. Mrs. Belleville posts any scholarships that she gets on Naviance. There's a scholarship tab. So again, certainly you want to be aware of this and aware of what's out there. But it's usually something students focus on a little bit more in their senior year. So just to sum up, things that we've learned. So just random things that we've learned. First of all, we all believe this, that college is not the only path to success. So for example, we went to New England Tech, which is of course a college, but at that college you can come out with certificates, an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. We love our trips to Naugatuck Valley. where some students, it's a great place for many students to start, especially if your sons or daughters and the students out there don't know what they want to do. There's all these articulation agreements with Naugatuck Valley, with our Connecticut state system. So sometimes students are just not ready to go away. It's a great way to save money, and it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily spend 2 years there. Maybe you spend a semester there. Or maybe a student didn't do as well as they hoped and didn't get into the schools that they wanted to. Again, that can be a great start. It could be a great finish as well. But there's many different paths. We love hearing about the trades. I really, and all of us, Mrs. Riley, we thought was going to start working at New England Tech. She loved it so much. But we saw one main building, but they had an automotive, they had a vet tech school. There's so many wonderful paths that students can take. And we talk a lot about college because here at Concord, the majority of our students are applying to four-year colleges, but we really do want to spread the word that that is not the only path to success. College is not a prize to be won, but a match to be made. You need to narrow your choices. Eventually, you can only attend one. I think this, for me, is the year I have a student applying to like 20-something colleges this year. And I really tried to have a conversation of, oh my goodness, well, what would you do if you got into all those schools, and about what that costs for application fees. So really, again, we're trying to give you all this information so you can narrow down those choices before you apply your senior year. A good school, so this happens all the time. We get calls of, can you recommend a good school? And I think all of us have the same philosophy that a good school is the right fit. So good for me and good for you and good for the next student can be very different. It's the fit. It's what works well for your son or your daughter, and for the students that are out there. Nothing replaces a campus visit. So again, would you buy a prom dress without trying it on, or a car without test driving it? Again, that prom dress, when it's a good fit, that's the right one. And so same thing with a college visit. Other things, just wrapping up, deadlines are real. So we're so lucky here at the high school, there's a lot of teachers that extend deadlines sometimes, things like that. When it comes to financial aid and it comes to admissions, the deadlines are the deadlines. Even when you do your taxes, you can file for an extension. When you apply to college, you don't meet those deadlines, they're not going to look, because most colleges are not hurting for students. So it's important that you meet those deadlines, especially for financial aid. A lot of times once they, use their money, towards the end of the process, they don't have as much to give out. So get those forms in early and by the deadlines, certainly. The Common App is your friend. Again, the Common App was designed for the ease of students. So use that. If your school's a Common App school, definitely use Common App. We're going to talk a lot more about that with our seniors next year. And again, I talked earlier about we will be going to senior English classes. We have different colored forms. We've been using a system here. I know Mrs. Miller's been here 30-something years. We have 20-something years. Mrs. Riley, and we've been using this system for a long time, so we're sticking to that. So we will go over that, and it's about how you get letters of recommendations from teachers. We have a transcript request form, and that's what we'll talk to seniors about very early next year. And we're here to help. Please use us as resources. Again, we talk to a lot of admissions reps. We have, again, I think Mr. Meyer said, we are learning things all the time. We are not experts, we know a lot because of our experiences, and we can, I know a lot of times students will come and they'll be interested in a school and be like, oh yeah, I had this student who went there and had a great experience, or, for this particular student, they didn't, and this was the reason why. So again, please use us because we want to help you. We love this. We love working with students, particularly with the college process, many of us. So we are there to help. Mrs. Riley, do you want to? No? The last thing I just wanted to say is we have a college admissions panel. So last year, anybody come last year to the college admissions panel? Great. So we're trying to get more people out to our admissions panel. This is a little different from what we're presenting today, but overlaps, of course, to hear directly from our admissions counselors that we deal with often as to what they're looking for. It's an opportunity. We have a lot of Q&A time for that. So in February, we don't have the exact date yet, but we're working on that, and we're working on getting some of the same reps back, and maybe we'll expand that a little bit as well. Great. Questions? counselors, feel free to jump in to help.
Regarding college visits,
Yes.
how important do you think scheduling an interview is?
Good question. So it depends on the school. Some, like a big school like UConn, probably there isn't even the opportunity to do that. Sometimes interviews are very just looked at as informational, an opportunity for you to talk to a rep, you to ask questions, they to ask questions. So that's a good question to ask the school if they weigh that as part of the application process. I do know, for example, American University was here one year, and to them, like going to visit on campus, anything that you did where you attended something, that was important to them, because that showed that you were interested in that particular school.
And the
yeah,
college panel last year said the same as Amy's saying, that demonstrated interest, so not necessarily an interview, but if you're going to go on campus, certainly if you're going on vacation and driving through to get a feel is one thing, but if you're going to take a visit, make sure you register, because they will look you up. You know, demonstrated interest is something that they pay attention to.
And some of the upper tier schools may require an interview, so I just explained to you.
How do you register for a visit?
So how you register for a visit is you would go on the website for that particular school. Sometimes you can sign up right online, or sometimes you could just call. You would probably do either call the admissions office and sign up for a tour, or there's tours, you know, all throughout the day, weekends and holidays.
The Naviance school, does that include like Canadian or European students, or is it just American?
If Naviance includes Canadian, if just...
If we've had students go, yeah, so you can do, when you do a search for the scattergram, certainly if we've had students go, that's plotted as well. But in the search, I think they do include Canada, they do include, I'm not sure I've seen European countries.
I've seen
No, definitely have students apply.
So yes.
Yeah.
So you can do a search and include out of the United States as well.
Students apply to Canadian schools in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
There's a lot from McGill.
Oh, yeah. The Kings, I had a Kings College in Canada. Sorry?
Just wanted to mention to folks really quickly, the financial aid night that was scheduled for tonight, new scheduled, and I'm working with the presenter to get that done, so information will be forthcoming.
Well, thank you so much for coming out this morning. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.